हेलो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, कैसे हैं आप लोग। उम्मीद करती हूँ आप सब अच्छे होंगे। द 4 टाइप्स ऑफ ट्रस्ट। थिंक लाइक अ मॉन्क, written by Jay Shetty. In the ashram, I was upset, but I felt my care wasn't reciprocated. We often expect too much of others when we don't have a clear sense of their purpose in our lives. Let's consider 4 characteristics that we look for in the people we allow into our lives. You will recognize these people. Most of us know at least one person who falls into each of these categories. Competence. Someone has to be competent if we are to trust their opinions and recommendations. This person has the right skills to solve. ये 4 टाइप्स ऑफ ट्रस्ट जो है मैं शॉर्ट्स में डालूंगी, आप वहाँ से अच्छे से देख लीजिए चारों भी। कंपिटेंस, केयर, कैरेक्टर, कंसिस्टेंसी। आवर इश्यू यहाँ भी है और मैं इसको अलग से शॉर्ट में भी डालूंगी। They are an expert or authority in their area. They have experience, reference, and or a high Yelp rating. Care. We need to know a person case if we are putting our emotions in their hands. Real care means they are thinking about what is best for you, not what is the best for them. They care about your well-being, not your success. They have your best interest at heart. They believe in you. They will go beyond the call of duty to support you, helping you move, accompanying you to an important doctor's appointment, or helping you plan a birthday party or wedding. Character. Some people have a strong moral compass and a compromising values. We look to these people to help us see clearly when we aren't sure what we want to believe, what we want or believe it right. Character is especially critical when we are in the interdependent partnership, a relationship, a business partnership, a team. These people practice what they preach. They have good reputations, strong opinions, and down to earth advice. They are trustworthy. Consistency. People who are consistent may not be the top experts, have the highest character, or care most deeply for you. But they are reliable, present, and available when you need them. They have been with you through highs and lows. Nobody carries a sign announcing what they have to offer us. Observe people's intentions and actions. Are they in alignment? Are they demonstrating what they say they value? Do their values correspond with yours? We learn more from behaviors than promises. Use the 4 types of trust to understand why you are attracted to a person and whether you are likely to connect as a friend, a colleague, or a romantic partner. Ask yourself, what is my genuine intention for getting involved in this relationship? The 4 types of trust may seem like basic qualities, what we instinctively look for and require. But notice that it's hard to think of someone who cares about you. It is competent in every area, has the highest character, and is never too busy for you. Two of the most important people in my life are Swami, my monk teacher, and my mother. Swami is my go to spiritual person. I have the utmost trust in his character. But when I told him I wanted to leave Accenture and go into media, he said, I have no idea what you should do. He is one of my most valued advisors, but it was silly to expect him to have an opinion about my career, and he was wise enough not to pretend to have one. My mom will also not be the best person to ask about career moves. Like many mothers, she is most concerned with my well being, how I am feeling, whether I am eating well, if I am getting enough sleep. She is there where care and consistency. But she is not going to counsel me on managing my company. I needed to be angry at my mother for not caring about every aspect of my life. Instead, I should have saved myself the time, energy, attention, and pain and simply appreciate what she is offering. We tend to expect every person to be a complete package, giving us everything we need. This is a setting the bar impossibly high. It's hard to find that person as it is to be that person. The four types of trust will help us keep in mind what we can and can't expect from them. Even your partner can't provide care, character, competence, and consistency in all ways at all times. Care and character, yes, but nobody is competent in all things, and though your partner should be reliable, nobody is consistently available in the way you need them. We expect our life partner to be our everything to complete us. Thanks, Jerry Margiran. But even within that deep and lifelong union, only you can be your everything. Being at the ashram with the people who weren't a family or otherwise connected to us gave us a realistic perspective. There it was clear that nobody could or should play every role. Interestingly, a psychology today article describes a field study of military leadership in Iraq done by Colonel Patrick Sweeney and a psychologist. Sweeney similarly found three C's of trust: competence, caring, and character. The difference is that he observed that all three qualities were necessary for soldiers to trust their leaders. Military and monk life both adhere to routine and principles, but monks aren't following their leaders and laying their lives on the line. To think like a monk about relationship, instead of looking for all your four C's, set realistic expectations based on what a person actually gives you, not what you want them to give you. When they don't have all four C's, realize that you can still benefit from having them in your life, and you should be at least as attentive to what you can offer them. With friends or colleagues, get into the habit of asking yourself, what can I offer first? How can I serve? Am I the teacher? Am I a teacher, a peer, or a student? Which of the four C's do I give to this person? We form more meaningful relationships when we play to our strengths, and like Swami don't offer expertise that we don't have. Exercises like the one above aren't meant to attack labels to people. I am against labels, as I have explained, because they reduce the many nuanced hues of lives to black and white. The monk approach is to look for meaning and observe what you need to move forward instead of getting locked in judgment. However, when we apply filters like the four C's, we can see if our network of compassion is broad enough to guide us through the complexity and chaos of life. Even if you have both the four C's covered, we benefit from multiple viewpoints within each of these categories. A mother's care isn't the same as a mentor's. One person with a character might give great romantic advice, while other might help you through a family argument, and one consistent friend might be there for you during a breakup, while another is always available for a spirited hike. Make your own family. In order to find diversity, we have to be open to new connections. A part of growing up at any age is accepting that our family of origin may never be able to give us all that we need. It's okay to accept what you do and don't get from the people who raised you, and it's okay, necessary in fact, to protect yourself from those in our family who aren't good for you. We should have the same standards for our family as we do for everyone else, and if the relationship is fraught, we can love them and respect them from a distance while gathering the family we need from the wider world. This doesn't mean we should neglect our families, but forgiveness and gratitude come more easily when we accept that we have friends and family, and we have friends that become family. Feeling connected to at some level of all of humanity can be positively therapeutic. For those who own families have made their lives difficult. The human family. When you enter a new community, as I entered the ashram, you have a clean slate. You have none of the expectations that have already built up among family and friends. Most likely, nobody shares your past. In situations like this, most of us rush to find our people, but the ashram showed me another way. I didn't need a replicate a family. I didn't need to replicate a family, creating a small circle of comfort and trust. Everyone in the ashram was my family, and as we traveled and connected with people across India and Europe, I began to recognize that everyone in the world was my family. As Gandhi said, the golden way is to be friends with the world and to regard the whole human family as one. The groups we establish for learning, growth, and shared experiences, like families, schools, and churches, help us categorize people. These are people I live with. These are the people I learn with. These are the people I pray with. These are the people I hope to help. But I didn't want to discount someone's opinions or worth because they didn't fit in neatly into one of these circles. Aside from the limits of practicality, there weren't certain people who deserved my attention or care or help more than others. It's easier to look at everyone as a member of our family if you don't imagine that is very every human at every moment. A well-known poem by Jean Dopinick Martin says, "People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. These three categories are based on how long that relationship should endure. One person might enter your life as a welcome change, like a new season. They are an exciting and enthralling shift of energy. But the season ends at some point, as all seasons do. Another person might come in with a reason. They help you learn to grow, or they support you through a difficult time. It almost feels like they have been deliberately sent to you to assist or guide you through a particular experience, after which their central role in your life decreases. And then there are lifetime people. They stand by your side through the best and worst of lives, loving you even when you are giving nothing to them. When you consider these categories, keep in mind the circle of love. Love is a gift without any strings attached. This means that with it comes the knowledge that all our relationships are meant to endure with equal strength indefinitely. Remember that you are also a season, a reason, and a lifetime friend to different people at different times, and the role you play in someone's life won't always match the role they play in yours. These days, there is a small, consistent group of people with whom I am closest, but that doesn't change the connection I feel to all humanity. And so, I ask you to look beyond the people you recognize, beyond your comfort zone, to strangers and people you don't understand. You don't have to befriend them all, but see them all as equal, with equality of soul and the potential to add variety to your knowledge and experience. They are all in our circle of care. मैं ये ट्राई शॉर्ट्स में डालूँगी, आप वहाँ से देख लीजिए. ट्रस्ट इज अर्नड. Once you have established reasonable expectations from a relationship, then it is easier to build and maintain trust. Trust is central to every relationship. Trust means we believe that the person is being honest with us, that they have our interest at heart, that they will uphold their promises and confidences, and that they will stay true to these intentions in the future. Notice that I didn't say they are all right, they are right all the time or handle every challenge perfectly. Trust it about intentions, not abilities. When an important person let us down, the blow to our test trust reverberates across all our relationships. Even people with the best intentions change or don't follow the same path that we do. Other people give us plenty of signs that their intentions don't mesh with ours, but we ignore them. And sometimes, if we were more aware, there are people we will know not to trust in the fireplace. Other people's behavior is always out of control. So, how can we trust anyone? Stages of trust. Trust can be extended to anyone from a taxi driver to a business partner to a lover, but obviously, we don't have the same level of trust for everyone. It's important to be attentive to how deeply we trust someone and whether they are actually earned that level of trust. Dr. John Gottman, one of the nation's top marriage experts, wanted to find out that what makes couples get stuck in ongoing conflict. Instead of resolving it and moving on, he examined couples from all over the country, from valid socio-economic and ethnic backgrounds, and in the variety of life situations, from newlyweds to expecting parents to families where one spouse was deployed in military service. Across the board, the most important issue to all of these couples and trust was trust and betrayal. The language they used to describe the issues varied a bit, but the central question was always the same. Can I trust you to be faithful? Can I trust you to help with the housework? Can I trust you to listen, to be there for me? The couples had good reason to make trust a priority. According to studies by Dr. Bella Di Polo, people are dishonest in one-fifth of their interactions. 77 college students and 70 people from the community at large were asked to keep track of their social interactions for 7 days. They were told to record all of their exchanges and to note how many lies they told. I know what you are thinking. What if they lied about lying? To encourage honesty, the researchers told the participants that there was no judgment involved and that their responses would help to answer fundamental questions about lying behavior. They also sold the experiment as a chance to get to know themselves better. In the end, the students reported some level of lying in one-third of their interactions and the community members in 1 out of every 5 interactions. No wonder how many of us have trust issues. We know from our discussions of ego that we lie to present ourselves as better than we really are. But when these lies are discovered, the betrayal does far more damage to both people than honesty will have. If the seed of trust is not planted effectively in the beginning, we grow a weed of mistrust and betrayal. We aren't careful with when and how we give our trust. We either trust other people too easily or we withhold our trust from everyone. Neither of these extremes serves as well. Trusting everyone makes you vulnerable vulnerable to deception and disappointment. Trusting to no one leaves you suspicious and unknown. Our level of trust should directly correspond to our experience with a person growing through 4 stages of trust. Neutral trust. When you meet someone, it is normal not to trust them. You may find them funny, charming, or joy to be around. These positive qualities do not merit trust. They mean you think your new acquaintance is cool. We tend to conflate trustworthiness with likability in studies examining jurors' perceptions of expert witnesses. Those the jurors found to be likable, they also rated as more trustworthy. They also tend to trust people we find attractive. Rick Wilson, co-author of Judging a Book by its Cover, Beauty and Expectations in the Trust Game, says we found that attractive subjects gain a beauty premium in that they are trusted at higher rates, but we also found a beauty penalty when attractive people do not live up to expectations. When we equate reliability or appeal with trust, we set ourselves up for huge disappointment. It is better to have neutral trust than to trust someone for the wrong reasons or to trust them blindly. Contractual trust. I derived this level of trust from Rajas, the impulsive mode of life, where you focus on getting the result that you want in the short term. Contractual trust is the quid pro quo of relationships. It simply says, if I pay for dinner and you promise to pay me back, I have faith that you will do it. If you make a plan, you can count on the person to show up, and there is no further expectations. Contractual trust is useful. Most of us share contractual trust with the majority of people who cross our paths, yet we expect them to trust us implicitly. The heart may want a deeper connection, but we have to be discerning. Expecting more from someone who is now showing your contractual trust is premature at best and dangerous at worst. Mutual trust. Contractual trust reaches a higher level when you help someone expecting they could most likely to be same for you in some way at some unknown time in the future. Where contractual trust relies on a specific exchange both parties have agreed to in advance, mutual trust is so far looser. This stage of trust is derived from sattva, the mode of goodness, where we act from a place of goodness, positivity, and peace. We all want to get to this level, and good friendships usually do. Pure trust. The highest level of trust is pure goodness. When you know no matter what happens, that another person has your back, and vice versa. College basketball coach Don Mayer used to give each of his 10 teammates a blank piece of paper on which he did ask them to draw a circle to represent their foxhole. They wrote their names at the top of the circle, then drew lines at the left, right, and rear. On each line, they had to list the name of a teammate who they did want in their foxhole with them. Those chosen most often by the teammates, where the team natural leaders to choose your foxhole gang wisely. If you were to graph the number of people you trust at each level, the result would probably look like a pyramid. A lot of people at neutral trust, fewer people at contractual trust, your closer circle at mutual trust, and only a handful at the top level pure trust. No matter how dissatisfied you are with your pyramid, don't promote people without reason. They will only let you down. The biggest mistake to we make is to assume that everyone else operates just like us. We believe that others value what we value. We believe that what we want in a relationship is what others want in a relationship. When someone says I love you, we think they mean exactly what we mean when I say I love you. But if you think everyone is a reflection of ourselves, we fail to see things as they are. We see things as we. Mutual trust requires patience and commitment. It is built on a true understanding of the other people in spite of and business because they are separate from us and view the world differently. The way to step back from making presumptions is to closely observe their words and behaviors. When people show you their level of trust, believe them. I want you to feel grateful for the people who can trust and to feel honored by those who trust you. If you have neutral trust for someone, that's cool too. Accept people as they are and you give them the chance to grow and prove to be more. We set ourselves up for long term trust when we let it evolve naturally. Trust is a daily practice. Relationships rarely get to a point where both participants can say, I absolutely know this person and they absolutely know me. Like a curve that continually approaches but never reaches a line, you never get to the point of saying, I trust them fully and they trust me fully forever and ever. Trust can be threatened in small and large ways and needs to be reinforced and rebuilt on a daily basis. Build and reinforce trust every day by making and fulfilling promises. Contractual trust, giving those you care about sincere compliments and constructive criticism, going out of your way to offer support. Mutual trust, standing by someone even when they are in bad place, have made a mistake or need a help that requires significant time. Pure trust. हम आगे का नेक्स्ट वीडियो में कंटिन्यू करेंगे. आप थोड़ा 20 मिनट्स का वीडियो हो चुका है, काफ़ी लॉन्ग हो चुका है. अगर इससे भी लॉन्ग वीडियोस चाहिए तो आप मुझे कमेंट करके बता सकते हैं. ये मैं इतना ही रखूँ 20-25 मिनट्स या 40-45 मिनट्स की रीडिंग सही रहेगी या कम रखो 5-10 मिनट्स तक. आप मुझे कमेंट्स करके ज़रूर बताइए कि कितना लॉन्ग वीडियो बनाना चाहिए मुझे. बाय फॉर नाउ.